one of the benefits by actually holding art is, in terms of our legislation, is that art and objects of art is classified as a personal use asset. In other words, that when you sell art and you are not a dealer, then effectively that's a personal use item and you don't have to pay any capital gains tax when it is sold. Unlike when you are a dealer, that when you sell as part of your trade, obviously you've got to pay income tax. The other very important aspect which we deal with is that on the death of any person, it's a deemed capital gains tax event. The deeming provision stipulates that on your death, it's a snapshot being taken of all your investments with values as a date of death. Now, there's some exemptions of certain types of assets. One is your principal residence. That's exempt to the value of 1.5 million rand. And obviously, on death as well, for capital gains tax purposes, you've got the exemption of all your personal use assets, and which could include, and which would include your household furniture and effects and your art collection or objects of art. But on the other hand, one must also remember that, notwithstanding the fact that you get the relief for capital gains tax purposes, there is estate duty payable. Now, paintings and objects of art for years have always been regarded as very movable and that you can merely just pass them on to kids. Obviously, that could give rise to donations tax, to the extent that where executives come along and they see the blank spaces on the walls, you know, sort of obviously the things have walked. And when I spoke to Ina Marks of SARS, when she was asking me after an article which I wrote on what has happened to all the art, she said, well, you know, sort of there's very little that one can do to track art. But as we know, one of the things that SARS is becoming quite clever at, and that's not only with their lifestyle sort of audits, but they can very easily walk into any institution, and they've got the authority to do so, to say that, you know, so can we have a list going back 10 years of all your sales? They're entitled to do so. So art is on the radar screen, we know that, but do not fear, because there are very effective ways how one can actually overcome perceived difficulties which one could have for estate duty purposes. I've already alluded to the benefits by actually holding art from a capital gains tax perspective, and estate duty, obviously something that can bite. Estate duty is levied at a flat rate of 20%, to the extent that you simply give things to your children or your beneficiaries. That would be regarded as a donation, and donations tax incidentally is also the same as estate duty, flat rate of 20%. In planning your estate, it's very important to consider the various types of structures that one can actually have for the purpose of holding art. We know that the Minister of Finance in Parliament said that he's looking at estate duty and looking at abolishing estate duty on the basis that it costs them more to collect the estate duty than the actual amount of estate duty that has been collected. Now, I'm always worried when the fiscal says, you know, we're going to abolish a tax. I always say, watch out for the sucker punch, you know, so because he's sort of, you know, showing you something very pretty here, but he comes, you know, from on the right with the punch from the side. Because a lot of people and a lot of clients have approached me already and said, you know, so is there any need? You know, why should we actually worry about estate duty? You know, so why do we worry about all these things and, you know, the structuring of assets, and not necessarily only art, which we're talking about tonight, but any other asset?